I'm John Evans. Welcome to another episode of One on One. You can say that baseball is in Josh Bonifay's blood. His grandfather, Bob, was the general manager of several minor league baseball teams. His uncle, Brannon, played and managed in the minor leagues. And Josh's father, Cam, set several records playing baseball at Georgia Tech, and then later became the general manager for the Pittsburgh Pirates baseball team. Josh hung around the game as a kid, played in high school, and then earned a spot on the UNCW baseball team. And Josh's father's team, the Pirates, drafted him after his junior season with the Seahawks. So you're thinking, Dad's the GM, Josh has got a route already to the major leagues. Wrong. It doesn't happen that way. Josh Bonifay had the talent, but after 8 seasons in the minor leagues, he had to retire because of injuries. Josh Bonifay never achieved his dream of playing in the major leagues. With that part of his career over, he came back to UNCW, got his degree, and then set off on a new path: minor league baseball coach and manager. And now, with his new job with the Philadelphia Phillies, he's in a position to help a new generation of baseball players achieve their dreams. Well, Josh Bonifay, UNCW graduate, Director of Player Development for the best baseball franchise on earth, the Philadelphia Phillies. Welcome to the One-on-One with John Evans podcast.
Hey, thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to be on the show.
It's amazing to me that of all the years that I've been a Philadelphia Phillies fan, I've got an insider talking to me right now. You're a baseball guy. You know about the Phillies and the background of this franchise. How neat is it to be with a franchise like this that has such a storied history in the major leagues?
Well, first, it's an extreme honor to be, I was called in October for the job, and it was an honor just to be even recognized and called for the position. But to be involved in it now is phenomenal. I mean, every day I get the opportunity to speak with Boa and Manuel and be involved with staff members from the past that have won World Series championships, have developed numerous players on a consistent basis, big league players. And it's incredible to be here among the staff. It's incredible to be able to have the opportunity to help lead such a tremendous organization. And I just love showing up. The culture here is phenomenal. And every single day, it's just a joy just to work for people and obviously David Montgomery, our leader, just passed away the other day. An incredible human, incredible person. He touched so many lives, and just to be able to have the opportunity to meet him for such a short period of time and see what kind of culture he brings and the family type atmosphere to the Phillies, it's remarkable, incredible that I even have this opportunity.
All right, I'm going to gush over the Phillies a little bit later. I want to get to Josh Bonifay. Tell me, what's more difficult, graduating with honors at UNCW or hitting a round ball with a round piece of wood?
Well, I would tell you graduating with honors is way more difficult, but no, hitting the baseball was extremely difficult. It's a skill, obviously, that only a few people have. I was very fortunate to have it, work hard at it, and be able to play the best game in the world. So, going back to school was extremely difficult, taking almost 9 years off, not knowing anybody at school, and kind of working my way back through. I think I had 42 hours left to finish. So, that was tough, but I absolutely loved going back to Wilmington, spending a year and a half back, where I went to school and finishing up. The relationships that I built the second time around were second to none. The staff members were so accommodating, and they worked extremely well with me. I even took a job with the Pirates at that time in January before I graduated, and they allowed me to travel. They allowed me to do classes through the internet. I mean, it was just amazing, and can't say enough about UNCW and the business school. It was just awesome to go back and finish my degree.
Did you value it better the second time you were taking classes than the first time? Because the first time you're 18, 19 years old, you're there to party. But the second time it was more like a business for you, wasn't it?
Oh, yes, sir. The first time around, obviously, is playing baseball. It's going to study hall. It's going to eat and hang out with your friends a little more. The second time around was it's get it there. I have to pay for it. It's get it done, get the job done. And you really pay attention a little more. You really focus in on the classes. You don't have practice. You don't have weights. So when you go back, you really value the relationships that you build with the other students and the teachers. And I enjoyed the ride a little more the second time around. I enjoyed the city more. I enjoyed, obviously, the food is incredible in Wilmington. So I enjoyed going to the restaurants and being able to hang out and not have games on Friday and Saturday night. So I was able to do a few more things that Wilmington has to offer.
What's your earliest memory of playing baseball, Josh? You grew up in a baseball family. Dad was involved and still is. But do you remember your earliest memories of actually playing the game?
Yes, I remember being out on the field with my dad at Georgia Tech University when he was an assistant baseball coach. I remember going to camps with him. I also remember going to tryout camps when he was a scout with the Cincinnati Reds. So there was a lot of tremendous baseball memories that I have that I've been very fortunate just because of my father and who he was. But being able to go to different types of camps, being able to travel him tryout camps, but also playing in Vineville. Vineville Avenue is in Macon, Georgia, where I was born. So those are my first memories in Little League. Is actually really, playing t-ball there, and my dad putting the ball on the tee for me. So that's kind of my first memory was in Vineville Avenue in Macon, Georgia.
Do you remember maybe when you realized how big a deal Dad was in the game? That maybe a lot of dads came to Little League, but your dad was involved with baseball for a long time. So when did you get the idea that Cam was a pretty big deal with baseball?
I mean, knowing about 9 years old is when I kind of knew, and that was when he moved to Georgia Tech, and he had left Cincinnati as a scout, and he went to Georgia Tech. And I realized how big of a deal Georgia Tech baseball was, and being able to be the bat boy, being able to be in the clubhouse, being able to do that, and then him traveling. But the next step was a director of scouting for the Pittsburgh Pirates. And we moved to Pittsburgh. I realized we went to this ginormous stadium that I had never, been to before, and he had his own office and his name was there. So at that point, it was about 9-10 years old when I realized how big of a deal my pops was. Obviously it's just dad to me and out there playing baseball. But, once we got to Pittsburgh is when I realized how important he is to an organization and, the people that he worked with.
Now, you're a bat boy and around Georgia Tech. I know you said you grew up around clubhouses. Did you pick up stuff through osmosis almost with some of the people that you would rub elbows with or bring a bat to at home plate?
Well, I paid attention to a lot of people. I was very fortunate to be in a clubhouse in Pittsburgh. Jim Leland was the manager. Milt May was the hitting coach. And then obviously it was Barry Bonds, watching him hit, watching Bobby Bonilla hit, Andy Van Slyke hit, watching all these tremendous players hit in the early 90s for Pittsburgh. I mean, I was taking ground balls with Jay Bell during spring training and working with all of these players, which was phenomenal, and a childhood dream. And you just listen to them, you pay attention to what they do, you pay attention to their actions, and you try to emulate them to a certain extent when you're that young, because you want to be just like them. They are they're role models to you, and they're playing at the big league level. So yes, just being around, watching them hit, listening to the coaches teach the game of baseball, and learning what they're talking about. It's hard not to learn from the best in the world. So it was really, really cool.
I imagine you have a lot of stories, but can you share one of your most favorite ones from being in the clubhouse, or somebody talking to you that didn't necessarily need to talk to you? Anything like that?
Oh yeah, David Justice. I was in a cage. He was hitting off a tee, and I was hitting off the tee before he came in. So he was watching me hit while he was just kind of stretching and warming up. And I kept rolling over the baseball. I mean, he bet me $10 I couldn't hit, 5 out of 10 right back at the screen. So I took the bet, and I was 4 of 9, and luckily I hit the next one right back at the screen. So it was really cool. He got done hitting. I stayed in there and watched him. I walked down to the clubhouse, and he asked the clubby, because he got his wallet out of the lockbox, and he asked the clubby, he's like, "You got change for 100?" And I was like, I'll take 100. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm sure you would, kid." And but he got change, gave me a $10 bill. The $10 bill is actually still in a little box that I have at my house with his ball signed, and it's still inside the case. So really cool memory of that. And I'll share another one, was the '94 All-Star game. That was one of the most incredible memories with the Big Hurt, Randy Johnson, Ken Griffey Jr., Kirby Puckett. I mean, the list goes on and on of the players. Will Clark, David Combs, Joe Carter. I mean, it was incredible, the amount of firepower and star power in that room. And I was very fortunate to be a part of it, and be around it. My brother caught bullpens. I was actually, one of the kids on the field during the home run derby, chasing after the balls, trying not to get smoked in the head. and I was able to be the bat boy. So what a phenomenal memory for me, and for my brother and for our family. But Ken Griffey Jr. was wearing his hat backwards, and Kirby Puckett was like, "You need to turn that hat around," because Kirby, obviously he was a veteran, telling the kid what he needed to do. But really, really cool memories. Very fortunate to be a part of that.
Now, you grew up and went to school in Asheville. How did you get there and then make a decision to go to UNCW?
Yeah, so family dynamics obviously change. My dad went to Pittsburgh, my mom went to Asheville, and I wanted to be there with my mom. And I got to spend a lot of time with my dad during the summer. But obviously I stayed with my mom. Coach Tom Smith in Asheville, North Carolina. He was there for 30 years at Robertson. A lot of tremendous people, Maben and Narveson and all these players went to school there. So I decided to stay there and stay with her. But that was really the decision to stay in Asheville. And then to go to UNCW, I went to a hitting camp in December of my junior year. Coach Scaff was at the hitting camp at Georgia Tech. And I struck up a conversation with Coach Scaff. We talked a little bit. He sent me some information about the school. I kept in touch with him, and I saw him again my senior year at the same hitting camp again. And we really, connected. And Coach Scaff asked if I wanted to come visit UNCW, and I was all in. As soon as I landed on campus, I loved the campus. I loved Brian Britt took me around, and John Avent, which, those are two great people from UNCW. Mm-hmm. And I absolutely fell in love. It was a doubleheader against James Madison, I'll never forget. And they went into extra innings in the second game. And Brian Britt, he ended it with, I think it was a base hit that night. Obviously hit like a ton of homers. But they took me to the beach.
No, well, that's the sales point to any recruit. Take them to the beach and you got them, right?
Hey, when you go to Oceanic and then you go to the beach, you're pretty much done. And it was phenomenal. I had the crab. It was like a crab dish for appetizer, and I was sold on the restaurant. I was sold everywhere, and Wrightsville Beach was absolutely gorgeous during the day.
Now, you actually, if I'm not mistaken, you were drafted out of high school, but decided to come to UNCW. Reason for that? You just needed to be better seasoned, or did you think you could do better a couple more years down the line?
No, I wanted to go to college. I wanted to get a degree, and I wanted to go to UNC Wilmington. Actually, I thought if I went to pro ball, I would have been fine, but I think I needed to mature physically and mentally, I think, as well. But I wanted to go to school. Everybody in my family has graduated from college. It was something that I wanted to do. It was a goal of mine. And I figured baseball would be there if that's the right path. But I was committed to UNCW and did not want to go early. I wanted to go to college, and loved every minute of it. What
are your favorite memories of Wilmington? I know you said that you were here for the better part of 3 years and then came back later. But when you were a ball player, when you were actually a Seahawk, I know you played as a freshman, then had some injuries, and then played again as a junior. What are some of the favorite memories when you had that uniform on?
Well, the favorite memory is just showing up the first day of school and then reading your classmates and living over at the Suite R, where the baseball team lived at that point. I'm not sure where it's at now, but meeting your teammates, getting on campus, and then meeting everybody in your first baseball meeting, and just being part of such a close-knit family, and it's still that way till today. My junior year was unbelievable when we swept East Carolina, because I'm not a big Pirate fan. And that's just because you go to UNCW, you learn not to like East Carolina at all. But
sure,
sweeping East Carolina, I think they were ranked number 11th in the nation that year, and we absolutely just dominated them. And it was, I think I hit 3 home runs in a game and 6 during that week. And that was an incredible memory, just because we finished above 500, and we hadn't finished above 500 in a couple years. And we knew that the baseball, UNCW baseball, was going in the right direction at that point. And I think it was making, our recruiting class as a freshman, when we came in, we wanted to change UNCW and put it on the right track to where, it was a consistent powerhouse. And it's that way still today. Consistently growing and consistently winning baseball games.
What does Mark Scaff mean to you? He's getting ready to retire here after one of the best careers in the school's history as a coach. But many people, and I've gotten to know Mark a little bit over the years, and many people tell me he's just as good a man off the field as he is a coach on the field.
He's a second father to me. And, at times I get choked up talking about him, because he meant the world to me. My dad was in Pittsburgh. I went to UNCW. He is an incredible human, first and foremost. He is a phenomenal person. He loves his players, and he shows them compassion. He shows them love. He shows them toughness. He builds, the strength for them to endure struggles. He is just a phenomenal role model, teacher of the game of baseball, but just an incredible person in the community, on and off the field. And to this day, I still talk to him, on the phone, share my story, share my life story with him, ask for advice. If there's anywhere that I go and get hired, he's one of the first people that I call. He is that person for me in the game of baseball, where, he builds trust, he builds relationships, and they last for a lifetime. And I am just extremely, extremely thankful that I got the opportunity to play for such a man, and incredible baseball, at UNCW. He really changed the course of my life as a young kid, made me understand how good I was at the game of baseball, put me on the right path, and challenged me day in and day out to become the best version of me. And, if not for him, I am nowhere close to what I am doing in the game today. So
I can see you're getting choked up talking about him.
Yeah, he's unbelievable. And I don't want May 18th to come, because, he's been such a big part of UNCW baseball. But UNCW baseball is definitely in a better place because of that man.
And he's a good man, and I agree with you. I think he's done it the right way all these years. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir. And he truly cares about the program and his players. Every one of them that come through.
When you were drafted, did you talk to him about whether you should come back for your senior year, or whether you were ready to play pro ball?
Yes. As soon as I was drafted in '99, I was playing in Asheboro, the Copperheads at that time. I called Coach Scaff, told him I wanted to meet him. Actually, I met him at a UNC, the Sharks game.
Yeah. And
we sat through a Sharks game that night and talked about what I would be doing if I came back to UNCW, and my future at the college. But I think he knew ultimately that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a professional baseball player. It was a dream of mine, and I wanted to always play. I saw my father being professional baseball, and as cheesy it is, I wanted to follow in his footsteps. I hate it, but that's what I wanted to do. And he knew it, but Coach Scaff was like, we can work around things. We can offer you this or this, but it wasn't about any of the money. It wasn't about anything. I wouldn't have even taken any more money, because I wouldn't want to put the program, behind and being able to do scholarships. But we talked at length that night and came up with the best decision, and I knew that I was going to leave at that point. All
right. You leave, and tell me about the transition for playing baseball, and you're working as a college student, but then all of a sudden you're playing for a paycheck. And is it just a different level of expectation and even a different level of pressure?
I think as soon as you get there, you feel the different level of expectation. It is your job. You have to compete night in and night out. You have to get up. You have to grind through tough weeks, tough days, and then you have to reset your mind and get after the next day. There's always different expectations, especially when you were drafted as the son of the GM at that point in time. So when you walk in the door, you're kind of shunned off to the side and like, that's the GM's son. Don't say anything around him. Don't hang out with him. So there was different types of pressures from other spots. But just to play the game of baseball, you strap it on, you get after it, you compete, and there's nothing different when you get in between the lines. But off the field, yeah, there's different pressures at times.
And how long did it take you to get over that? I didn't realize there would be a shunning of the GM's kid.
Yeah, I mean, they want to hang out with you because you're the GM's kid, and they feel like you may say good things to your dad at that point, but they tried to stay away if there was anything that wasn't, they were doing something that they shouldn't be doing. But it took me up until he was fired. It was very tough to play as the GM's son, but you learn how to block that out. You learn how to compete. You learn, you just know that you have to work harder than anybody else. You have to perform better than anybody else to get rid of that tag. And I was prepared for it. Coach Scaff prepared me for the, like I said, there was mental toughness. There was struggles. We all went through them in college, but he prepared me very well for the things I was about to endure once I got into baseball, pro baseball.
And your first minor league, you end up in the home of the Little League World Series, Williamsport, Pennsylvania, where I met my bride a long time ago. It's a great place to play baseball in that stadium right along the river there. Tell me your memories of Williamsport.
Yeah, Bowman Field was outstanding. It was huge. I remember hitting, like 17 home runs my senior year. I go there and I couldn't even get it out of the infield. I felt so weak. Because you put a wood bat in there and the yard is so big. But I love the place. And then being able to go and go over the bridge and travel up the side of the mountain a little bit there to see the Little League World Series was absolutely incredible. We were on the road for actually 17 days just for the Little League World Series. So we didn't get to see the games, but we got to walk through the museum and see all the fields. And it's grown even more now. They've added more. But I'm looking forward to going back to Williamsport this year. Our club will be there, and now it's Major League Baseball has put so many, it's been millions of dollars in upgrading the facility, the infield, the dugouts, and all those. So I think the upgrades are there now. But it was a great starting place. Butch and Betty Anthony from Williamsport, that was the host family I lived with. They are phenomenal people. I still talk to them regularly, so I'm looking forward to catching up with them when I go back to Williamsport.
Now, minor league baseball is just a lot of little towns and little cities all the way through. Along the way, did you ever get to the point before you got hurt, which kind of forced you to retire, but did you ever get to the point where you're like, oh, I'm done, I'm out of here, or did you just love the game that much?
No, I mean, there's nights where I threw away my shoes, I threw away my sliders, I threw away batting gloves. I think I struck out 5 times in one game, and I was like, all right, I'm done. This is embarrassing. But then, you realize you go to bed, you wake up, you got another shot at it the next day. But there's no way anybody was going to drag me off a baseball field unless I could not throw a baseball anymore. And unfortunately, that happened my last year in Corpus Christi.
And what was the realization then? I don't know when that day is going to come that I can't talk anymore, or they change the door code here and not let me in. But what was it like that day when you decided, okay, I've got to go a different direction?
It was incredibly difficult. I was in Kissimmee, Florida. I met with the director of player development, oddly enough, and I said, he said, we're gonna let you go. Your arm's not back, because I went back down to rehab to try to play again, and I knew that it was about a 25% chance because I had blown out my shoulder, my labrum, rotator cuff, everything was pretty much shredded. So he tried to put it back together the best he could. But just realizing I had a 10-hour ride back to Wilmington from Kissimmee, Florida, I talked to my dad. It was an extremely difficult conversation. A lot of emotions ran through me for a couple hours. But halfway through, I realized that I still was not done with my degree, and I was looking forward to the next challenge, which was finishing school. So I called UNCW, called my advisor, and got hooked up in classes. And I was back in classes within, I think it was 7 days. I was back on campus, starting to finish up my degree. But a lot of emotions. Definitely not a decision that I wanted to make whatsoever about playing baseball, because I absolutely love being out on the field still, and helping kids and working. And the best thing about the whole situation is my final game was a championship game in which we won in Corpus, and I ended on top as a champion. So that was pretty neat.
Well, you're a champion in many other ways, too. Don't let anybody tell you anything different. You were the first UNCW Seahawk to manage in professional baseball. I didn't realize that.
Didn't either. That's pretty cool.
You carry that mantle around as a Seahawk. I mean, even as you started to go and you were a minor league hitting instructor and did a lot of things. But when you got a chance to manage, did you think, okay, maybe this is my calling then?
Yeah, I wanted to manage as a younger player. I remember sitting in Altoona, Pennsylvania in 2005, and Tony Beasley and John Wayner, they're on the bench. And when I wouldn't play, I would gravitate towards them even more and listen to the conversations. And I realized that was something that I had a huge passion for, was to manage baseball, talk about the X's and O's, and strategize with them when I was not playing during the day. So I knew that was something that I wanted to do. I wasn't sure if I would ever get there. Limited number of jobs in terms of managing in the game of professional baseball, but you always talk about UNCW wherever you are. That's who I am. I'm a Seahawk through and through, and anywhere you go, when they ask where you went to school, it's UNC Wilmington, and everybody knows that's where you come from.
And you were a manager of the year a couple of times. What made you then decide to go into the management side rather than on-field manager?
Yeah, well, the opportunity came this year to come on the management side. It was something that I wasn't sure I was going to do. I talked to, at that point, the Houston's farm director, and said, I'm not sure if I want to go, in the office or not. I really love being on the field. I was a field coordinator at that time. I loved trying to develop staff members, trying to develop coaches, and putting in a curriculum for the organization. So wasn't real sure. I took about 2 days, 48 hours, talked to obviously my dad, talked to my family, and looked at it as another challenge to lead an entire organization and try to lead an entire organization and improve an entire organization. So I thought long and hard about it. I wasn't sure that it was the right decision, but I did some praying about it and ultimately got to the decision that where I said yes, and I'm so very thankful that I did make that decision, because I love this job even more than my last job. So it's pretty incredible to be able to be in a leadership role.
Now, you're going to have to stop taking your phone along with you when you go places, because I heard, just through research, you were at Disney World when you got a call that Texas wanted to talk to you about a job once, and you were at an anniversary dinner with your wife, Tiffany, when you got the call about the Phillies job?
Yes, I was actually in Asheville, North Carolina, taking my wife. We were, our anniversary, and got a phone call. We were having dinner, and I couldn't believe it. I was just floored. My face lit up. My wife, she was like, what? And I'm still on the phone trying to talk through it. So I finally got off, and it was grinning ear to ear because of the opportunity that was presented to me at that point. And she was through the roof. She was very excited, and I'm going to keep my phone on. I don't want to miss those opportunities. I can promise you that. So I've been very fortunate on those. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, I see a picture of your wife and your daughters there with yourself over there. Talk to me about Tiffany. I mean, obviously, you know what a baseball family is like. You grew up with mom in one place and dad in another, and dad being fired, you're hired to be fired. How important is she to you? Because you've got to have that person at home when you're away like this.
Yeah, Tiffany is incredible. She is the rock. She is the soul of our family. She makes things run. She gets everybody ready. She she runs the household. She really upholds like all the bills and the cutting of the grass when I'm not in town. I mean, she does everything. She is a tremendous person, a phenomenal mom. And, we celebrated her the other day on Mother's Day and just couldn't thank her enough for all the things that she's done for our family, the sacrifices. But, the moms have to be the strongest person in the family. They have to be the ones that discipline. They have to be the ones that, that teach and to love and care for and wash clothes when the kids go to bed and cook dinner when I'm not around. And I get to actually do something that I love every day and watch a baseball game. And she's doing the tough part of raising our two daughters right now. And we have a baby boy on the way that I couldn't be more thrilled about. And, she's going through morning sickness and she's still taking the kids to school and she's still doing everything. So she is, she is phenomenal, and she puts all the sacrifices and she takes care of everything in the family. And it's extremely important in the game of baseball. And if it wasn't for her, I don't get to do these things, and I would never be as successful like I am, just because, she guides and leads and takes care of everybody.
Is that something that maybe the ordinary fan doesn't realize, Josh, is that in baseball, it's not just, you're going out and you're playing a game. You are, but, you're away from the family. In your position as director of player development, you're away from home. They're in North Carolina. You're in Florida. You've moved several times. It's got to be difficult on the family.
Yeah, it really is. And luckily we have a strong support network in terms of her family and my family. They support her. They travel to her just to help out in other ways while I'm gone. But she's the heart and soul of the family. And if she's tired, she still grinds through it and she still gets after it. But I don't think people realize how much time you actually spend away from home. I think from October 25th, the day I was hired, until December 22nd, I was home 6 days with the family. Just, you're going through the process of introducing yourself to staff, traveling to the DR, looking at the complexes, going to Clearwater. You're trying to hire 12 different people and do all of these things. And she is the one that's sacrificing everything for the organization and the family. So it's really, really, if it's not for her, I don't get to do what I do.
It is really fun to see somebody enjoy what they do as much as you do, and to carry that UNCW flag the way you do. And, I see you getting a little emotional and talking about your wife. My job, I know, is not 9 to 5 either. I've got to be in here for a long day. I'm coming in here to make it at your convenience and doing other things, but you've got to have that support system, or else you really aren't going to do what you need to do to be successful.
Yes, and it is difficult, but like I said, the family picks up the pieces that, and my wife, makes sure that the kids are always at school on time. I mean, she's got to bathe them, clean them. And, she does everything. And if we don't have the people around us to support us, we are definitely not very successful. Because during spring training, I get up at 4:30 in the morning and I get home at 8 o'clock at night. And sometimes she'll travel down to Clearwater or wherever I have been. They'll spend a week. I get limited time. It's usually just for dinner, but it's good enough. And she makes all the sacrifices to travel and to make sure that, when we're away, that the kids are able to continue their schooling and continue things like that. So she's huge.
As director of player development now, you're overseeing every minor league team and every minor leaguer in the Phillies. That's a huge responsibility.
Yes, the huge responsibility that don't take lightly. There's a lot of people's careers at hand. There's a lot of people's careers that they want to move up. They want to achieve the dream of being in the big leagues. And you have to be really steady in terms of just working with them, developing relationships, making sure that the curriculum is correct in what you believe and how the organization values the people and its staff members. You really, it's a huge responsibility to make sure that, the players are developing, because if they're not developing, you're not producing in the bottom line, especially in Philadelphia. In Philadelphia, we know at times, if you don't perform, the fans will let you know about it. But You don't ever really look at it as a huge responsibility. You just know that's a part of the job, and that you know that everybody within the organization, you want to put their best interest first and put their best interest at heart, because you want them to succeed and have the opportunities to grow as staff, to grow as players, and ultimately achieve all the dreams that they want to, and big league dreams as well as players.
Now, you've played the game and you've been around the game for a long time. So is there still that sense of awe when you meet somebody like a Larry Boa or somebody? I'll tell you a quick story. When I first got into this business, I was working in the Wilkes-Barre-Scranton market, Pennsylvania, and I got the chance, I was doing sports, and I got the chance to go to Veterans Stadium for opening night. And I got a chance to interview Greg Maddux and Boa and Tim McCarver. And I think my hand was shaking as I held the microphone. I was so much in awe. How about you? Do you still get in awe of some of these guys?
All the time. All the time. There's, I get to, like I said, I get to speak with Boa, and I traveled with Charlie and Boa to Reading the other day, and I sat and watched the full game, and Charlie's talking about just story after story after player after World Series memory, and Boa's doing the same thing. And then you also get to meet, Gabe Kapler, and you get to work with him extremely close. I mean, this guy's done a lot in his career, and then he's managing. Also, Bryce Harper just got signed, and you walk by, you say, hello, Bryce. This guy's just worth $330 million. That's all, but you get to say hello to him, and you see the stresses, and you see the things that he goes through on a daily basis. But they're people. They really are. Jake Arrieta, like all of these guys, they're phenomenal people first and foremost. But it's, you pinch yourself a lot when you go through this business. And I have, and I still do to this day, just the incredible opportunity that I do have.
Okay, I hear somebody knocking on your door. That means you probably got to go. Again, I appreciate your time. I know Mark Scaff, I know he's told me how proud he is of you. I'm going to be keeping an eye on the Phillies Farm Club even tighter than I have for the past 50 years.
Well, please do, and please keep in touch. I've really enjoyed this today. Thank you for asking me the questions and bringing back a lot of memories for me that are very special to me and my family.
A big thank you to Josh Bonifay for taking time out of his very busy schedule to talk to us for this week's podcast. You can find him on social media, JCB28 on Twitter, and Joshua Bonifay on Facebook. And that's where you'll see some pictures of his beautiful family and the players and teams he works with every day. Before we go, I'd like to ask you once again to please subscribe to the One-on-One with John Evans podcast on whatever podcast app you use. And if you would be so kind, please leave us a rating or a review and let us know what you think of our program. The more ratings and reviews we have, the higher we'll be listed on the podcast apps, and the better chance we have of bringing in even more new listeners. I'm John Evans. Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of One-on-One.